When more than 50 professional golfers walk out of a private, 90-minute meeting and almost none of them will say a word, you know something big is happening. That's exactly what played out this week at Trump National Bedminster, where Bryson DeChambeau led a players-only session about the fate of LIV Golf, a league that may be just weeks away from either a rescue or total collapse. The day started quietly. Just before 2 in the afternoon, DeChambeau wrapped a practice round with Bubba Watson and walked off the 9th green. A reporter asked for a quick interview. He turned it down, saying only that a big meeting was about to start. Those 2 words carried a lot of weight, because right now, the biggest question in professional golf is whether LIV Golf survives, and if it does, what it even looks like afterward. To understand why, rewind to April 2026. That's when Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, the sovereign wealth fund that built LIV from nothing, announced it would stop bankrolling the league once the 2026 season ended. The fund has poured more than $5 billion into LIV since launch, and despite that spending, the league has struggled to gain real traction or hold onto talent. Since that announcement, the financial picture has only gotten worse. LIV is reportedly running on loans just to finish out this season. CEO Scott O'Neill and his team have been racing to raise up to $250 million to fund 2027. Employees have already been warned of possible layoffs, and the league has reportedly laid groundwork for potential bankruptcy filing in the U.S. Back in April, conflicting reports had some outlets saying the league would push forward and others predicting a shutdown. The rumors never really stopped, which brings us to Tuesday, when players finally got real answers, or at least tried to. It wasn't 1 meeting, but 3, stacked back-to-back. First, team captains met with O'Neill for about 40 minutes inside the clubhouse. Then the captains and O'Neill walked over to the locker room building, joining the rest of the players and team general managers for a combined session lasting roughly 20 minutes. Once O'Neill and the GMs left, the real meeting began, a players-only discussion led by DeChambeau that ran more than half an hour. Outside, the scene looked almost surreal. Caddies putted on the practice green to kill time. GMs hid from the sun under trees. A line of black SUVs sat ready to shuttle players back to their hotel. About 15 minutes in, O'Neill briefly appeared on the building's second-floor exit, walked down to a crowd of waiting reporters, and said nothing, flanked by a media staffer. Whatever information existed would have to come from the players. Around 3:45, players started filtering out, and most didn't want to talk. Lee Westwood and another player said they needed to get to practice. Lucas Herbert joked about maybe starting his own tour instead of answering questions. Anthony Kim, Graham McDowell, Thomas Peters, and Bubba Watson all stayed quiet. DeChambeau himself said nothing. Paul Casey stopped for a chat, but steered the conversation toward golf history rather than the meeting. A handful of players did open up, though, and their comments are the closest thing we have to a window into that room. Richard Bland, the veteran from Cleeks Golf Club, gave the most detail, confirming DeChambeau ran the players-only portion and explaining that everyone's trying to move forward together while still weighing their own individual situations. He suggested the real clarity would come in the next 2 to 3 weeks, describing the mood as hopeful but still waiting on final sign-off. Thomas Detry, from the Four Aces team, summed up the whole afternoon for reporters in just a few words, nothing concrete yet, but a positive tone. The Korean team's captain described the room as relaxed, even light-hearted, saying nobody was arguing and the overall vibe was good. Abraham Answer, from Talk, said the group went through the league's business plan for next year and added that he personally has no worries about his contract being honored. Notice how often that one word comes up: positive. Positive tone, positive update, positive energy. But not a single player pointed to a signed deal, a confirmed investor, or a locked-in 2027 schedule. The optimism seems genuine, but there's not much solid ground under it yet. That uncertainty shows up most clearly around the league's championship event. LIV Golf's $40 million team championship is still on the calendar for late August in Michigan, but multiple reports suggest it could be cancelled entirely. Construction on venue infrastructure reportedly hasn't started. Contractors say travel bookings were cancelled and payments have been delayed for months. Outlets, including the Wall Street Journal and Front Office Sports, have reported the event may not happen, and sources say no formal decision is expected immediately. Yet players say they've been told to prepare as if it's still on. Cameron Smith, captain of Ripper GC, said publicly that the team has been instructed to plan as though the event is happening even as uncertainty swirls. If Michigan does fall through, some of that event could be folded into the Indianapolis tournament, which would then become the unofficial season finale. And Michigan is just one item on a growing list of problems. New lawsuits have been filed against the league, including one alleging the entire concept was stolen. The Asian Tour, once a key feeder circuit, walked away from its LIV partnership to Rouline with the PGA Tour and DP World Tour, reportedly catching O'Neill off guard and costing LIV players access to official world ranking points. A streaming partner ended its deal mid-season. A tournament in New Orleans was postponed indefinitely, and O'Neill has reportedly pitched the league's massive financial losses to potential investors as a tax advantage, arguing those losses could offset future profits. Still, there's a sliver of real hope. Reports suggest LIV has lined up a group of anchor investors forming a financing syndicate that could fund a reshaped version of the league, sometimes referred to as LIV 2.0. The league hasn't confirmed it, but staying quiet during live negotiations is normal. And Bland's 2 to 3 week timeline lines up with a deal that might be close, just not signed yet. The next big moment comes fast. O'Neill is set to face the media directly this week at Bedminster, his first public comment since the meetings, and reporters will be ready with every question he dodged on those clubhouse days. 3 events remain on the schedule: Bedminster, Indianapolis, and possibly Michigan, and players are quietly preparing for any outcome. DeChambeau has reportedly floated leaning into his YouTube channel if the league folds, and at least one major championship contender is said to be exploring a return to the PGA Tour through his management team. Even in the best-case scenario, whatever version of LIV survives, this will likely look smaller and more restructured than the $5 billion experiment that started it all, possibly without the team championship that was meant to be its crown jewel. Whether the league makes it at all now comes down to a handful of unnamed investors, a CEO working around the clock for a lifeline, and roughly 2 to 3 weeks before anyone truly knows.